Good evening. This presentation done today is covering the topic of migrant workers' health disparities. The presentation is done by Mr. Jack Lynn, Mr. Andrew Gonzalez, Mr. Jorge Mares, and myself, Antonio McClary. We are part of the ABSN program here at Texas Tech, the Yale Griffin School of Nursing. We're part of cohort 12. And this presentation is for our community health class. An outline of what we're covering today will consist of what is and who are typically migrant workers, U.S. history on immigrant workers and their health conditions, what are their health system statuses, issues, and risks, what needs and determinants of health vary for the immigrants, solutions in immigrant health, community health, and resources for immigrant healthcare. So what is a migrant worker? A migrant is a person who moves regularly in order to find work, especially in harvesting crops. Who are immigrants? Immigrant is a person who comes to a country to take up a permanent residence, potentially also to seek a better way of life from the current position. I'm going to be giving a brief overview on the U.S. history of immigration. The Atlantic slave trade, which constructed slavery, about anywhere from 10 to 15 million enslaved people from West Africa during 1650 and 1860. Following that period in time, we experienced the industrial boom, which took place in the 1800s and 1900s, that consisted mainly of migrants from China and Central Europe. Highest immigration rates currently are taking place now and date back all the way to the early 1900s. And most of these immigrants coming now are from South America and the Middle East. Migrants are constantly on the move. What makes it difficult for any immigrant is that their overall health and well-being is put at risk consistently. This is due to chronic conditions and illnesses that are influenced by their migratory lifestyle. These unfortunate circumstances play a role on how undocumented immigrants have a reduced opportunity at being able to take advantage of provider networks. Fear of deportation and government contact will continue to perpetuate these complications of healthcare access within the population of undocumented immigrants. The Migrant Health Act committed to the provision of primary and supplemental health resources and services to aid and to help migrant workers. This also initiated the start of national efforts to enhance the health status of migrants working in the United States. A migrant person is a person who crosses a geographic boundary by chance, instinct, or plan and stays away from their normal residence to engage in remunerated activity. The health issues that immigrants face today pertain primarily to populations that are underserved and are influenced by migratory lifestyle, cultural limitations, and socioeconomic dispositions. Immigrants face promising challenges that are associated with barriers in communication, lack of mobility, cultural differences, individuals being unfamiliar with knowledge on how to access local healthcare services, limited access to public and private funded programs that provide healthcare. Right here we have a couple graphs depicting most common jobs held by immigrants in the United States. And this graph is going to depict how most migrants that come to work here in the States are usually going to take up jobs that are mainly dealing with housekeeping, agribusiness, or construction. This linear graph also shows on the left the past decades, the effect that immigrants are having in becoming a growing part of the labor force here in the United States. Typically, these workers that are going to be taking up these jobs are jobs in the sector of 3D, which means that these jobs are dangerous, dirty, and demanding. These jobs are going to make it difficult for migrants due to the fact that they are not able to receive that type of healthcare due to the fact that they're not legally documented migrants, and the fact that these jobs expose them to a lot of variables and external forces that affects their health, well-being, and current state of well-being. Most immigrants are challenged by a conjunction of social, legal, cultural, economic, behavioral, and communication that can lead to physical, mental, and social vulnerability.
Hello, my name is Jorge Mares, and I'll be talking about barriers for migrant children. So these are some of the things that affect their development. For example, losing a relationship with a friend. Whenever they migrate from one area to another, they lose that friendship. There's also changes to the family structure after the migration. Normally, it could have been where the father was the one that was going to work and the mother stayed at home raising the kids. The roles might be reversed once they migrate to a new area where maybe now the father has to work and so does the mother. Other examples would be hostility and segregation at school. So bullying, for example, and segregation that's based on the ethnicity, the differences. There can also be challenges to identity and a sense of belonging, where the child feels that they don't belong in that area or in that school, etc.
Hello, my name is Jenny Lin. I'm a nursing student from Texas Tech at El Paso. So I'm gonna go over some high-risk health problems for migrant workers. The mobility of migrant workers, along with other factors, can put this population on higher risks to certain health-related issues, such as mental trauma that is due to anxiety, depression, or developmental problems. We have pesticide exposure problems, and migrant workers are also at high risk for diabetes. So these are some risk factors for the general population, which a lot of them can be applied to the migrant workers. So we have individual factors including low self-esteem, depression, unemployment. We have relational risk factors including marital instability, male dominance, economic stress, etc. And we also have community-related risk factors, including poverty, low social capital, poor peer behaviors and attitudes. And migrant workers have more risk. We have some numbers. So 71% of migrant workers dominant language is Spanish, which means language barrier, and 31% of them are below poverty. And we also know that young, low-income low-income migrant workers tend to only present in clinics with acute illness or injury because they don't want to miss work, they don't want ask the boss to let them go, so they tend to wait until the symptoms kind of become more severe, which can delay the treatment. And we also know that migrant workers' circumstances put them on high risk for mental trauma, which can lead to mental illness. So let's talk about mental trauma. Mental trauma can be acute due to acute injuries, the acts of violence, physical or sexual abuse, or any life-threatening experience. Mental trauma can also be chronic. It can be due to repeated physical or sexual abuse over time. It can be due to surviving amidst violence in family community. It can be due to life-threatening neglect for the young children and for the older people. The effects of trauma can include difficulties in coping with stress of daily living, difficulty in trusting others, difficulty in maintaining memory, in thinking, in controlling expression of emotions. So mental trauma can put people on higher risk to many bad things. 4 times people who have experienced trauma are 4 times more likely to become an alcoholic, 4 times more likely to develop a sexual transmitted disease, 4 times more likely to inject drugs, 3 times more likely to use antidepressant medication, 3 times more likely to be absent from work, 15 times more likely to commit suicide, 2.5 times more likely to smoke tobacco, 3 times more likely to have serious job problems, 3 times more likely to experience depression. So to protect us from issues related to trauma, I think we need to have a way to gauge our stress level, to tell us, okay, if it's a good time for us to go to our doctor. So we do have a tool here. So on the left side, there's a table which has 9 rows. Each row has a set of symptoms. For example, the first row says if you have muscle, bone, or joint pains. Second row is if you feel down, sad, or blue most of the time. Third row, you have too much thinking or too many thoughts, on and on. So if you look at the right side, there are 5 scores assigned to each set of symptoms. We have 0, which is not at all. We have 1, we have 2, we have 3, we have 4. So the higher the score is, the more frequent or severe that your symptoms are. And on the right side, we have a picture resembling thermometer. We have 0 up to 10. So what you can do is that you can use the table on the left. You circle your score, say you don't have any muscle pain, you mark 0 on that row. If you feel bad, you feel down sometimes, you can mark 2, and you go down the table, and at last you add up everything together, you sum them up, then you will have a total score. And then you go ahead and use the thermometer on the right side. You have anything, say, below 3, that means you have low stress to no stress. But if you go high into the red area, anything above 7, that means your stress level is pretty high. Probably it's a good idea if you are anywhere in the red, you need to go ahead and talk to someone, say your primary doctor or your psychiatrist or your mental health doctor. Or you can just go to talk to your primary doctor who can refer you to mental health care. So this is a useful tool, I think, for us to detect our problem early, on the earlier stage. So don't wait too long. Next, we'll talk about pesticide-related health problems. Migrant workers, because most of our migrant workers work in the farm, so we are very likely to have this kind of problem. So I put a lot of stress on this. So pesticides, this is an overview. Pesticides are chemicals used to kill pests, such as insects, rodents, weeds, There are four types. We have insecticides that are used to kill insects. We have herbicides that are used to kill weeds. We have fungicide that are used to kill plant molds. We have rodenticides that are used to kill rats, mice, or other rodents. Migrant workers who work in farms may be exposed to pesticides frequently. They're at high risk for pesticide poisoning. And also, our farm workers not only are exposed to pesticides themselves, but also they can bring harmful chemicals unknowingly to their home through contamination on their clothing, on the equipment, unknowingly bring empty containers, etc. So the degree of harm depends on several factors. Depend on the kind of chemicals that we are exposed to, the length of the exposure, the age, body weight, height, and sex of the person who is exposed, and how healthy the person is. These are kind of common sense for us to know if the person is bigger and taller, have more mass in his body. That means it takes more poison to affect that person. And vice versa, if the person is very healthy, then he is probably more resistant to poison. And toxic chemicals affect us most when our bodies are actively growing or changing rapidly. That means it affects the babies in the womb and the children, the teenager who are growing very rapidly. That population are at higher risk for harm. And also the old person whose body is also changing. It's not growing, but it is kind of declining. The elder population also can be harmed more. And pesticide toxification can have long and acute effects. So effects on children. Children are more likely to be harmed by toxic chemicals because they are more likely to eat, breathe, or touch contaminated objects or dust. Children breathe. They also breathe much faster than adults do, so they can get sick from air pollution more quickly. In the womb, many toxic chemicals can pass through the placenta to harm the fetus. So the placenta is a temporary organ in the mother. The organs can shelter the fetus from a lot of harmful molecules, but some of the pesticide toxins can pass through the placenta and hurt the fetus, and they can cause allergies and breathing problems that even last a lifetime long. Common signs of pesticide poisoning in children are tiredness, diarrhea, pain in the stomach, seizures and shaking, or unconsciousness. So how to protect our children from pesticide poisoning? Children should not play with or touch old pesticide containers, even the containers are cleaned. They should not play on farm equipment that are used to spray pesticides. They should not wade or swim in irrigation drainage ditches. Or neither could they enter or play in recently treated fields. So what can adults do to help protecting their children? Well, they can remember to wash work clothes, shoes, and hands before entering the house and before touching the children. They should wash children's clothes apart from the parents' clothes, and they should wash fruits and vegetables very well before children eat them. And they should store pesticide containers and equipment out of children's reach. So these are some first aid measures for if anyone get pesticide poisoned. Most pesticide poisonings are through skin contacts, such as being spilled while moving, or splashed during mixing or during spraying. The first signs are normally rashes and irritation. If you or someone else get pesticide on the skin, what you should do is you should quickly remove clothing that the pesticide spilled onto. You should wash the affected skin with soap and cool water. If any pesticide gets into the eyes, you should rinse the eye with clean water for at least 15 minutes. If the skin is burned from pesticides, you should rinse well with cool water. You should not remove anything stuck to the burn. You should not apply lotion, fat, or butter to the area. You should not break blisters. You should not remove loose skin. All those are measures to prevent infection, because our skin is a protective barrier. And you should also cover the area with sterile dressing. If pain lasts, get medical help. So when pesticides are swallowed, if the person is unconscious, lay him on his side and make sure he is breathing. And if the person is not breathing, you can perform mouth-to-mouth breathing. But before doing so, try to protect yourself first by covering your mouth with a piece of cloth or a thick plastic film with a hole in the middle. Just put it on your mouth so you don't inject the poison yourself. And next, you should find the pesticide package and read the label right away. The label will tell you if you should make the person vomit up the poison or not. Seek medical help and save the label. Do not initiate vomiting if the label says no. Never vomit after swallowing a pesticide that contains gasoline, kerosene, xylene, or other petroleum-based liquids. Never make the person vomit or drink if he is unconscious, confused, or sick severely. If it is okay to vomit, then give the person a glass of very salty water or 2 tablespoons of pounded strong-tasting edible plants such as celery or basil, followed by 1 or 2 glasses of warm water. Keep the person moving around. This will help him vomit sooner. After vomiting, you can use activated or powdered charcoal. It can help to absorb any poison that is still in the stomach. You can mix 1/2 cup of activated charcoal or 1 tablespoon finely powdered charcoal with warm water in a large glass. You can make powdered charcoal from burnt wood or even burnt bread or burnt tortilla. You should never use charcoal briquettes because they contain poison. I'm talking about the charcoal that you buy from Walmart to have a grill, grill burger. Don't use those type. But some of the compound they use are poisonous. Okay. So when pesticides are breathed in, get the person away from the area where he breathes in the poison, especially if the area is enclosed, and get fresh air. loosen the clothing to make breathing easier. You should sit the person with head and shoulders elevated. If the person is unconscious, lay him on the side. If the person is not breathing, quickly perform mouth-to-mouth breathing and seek medical help. Then let's talk about diabetes. Migrant workers are at higher risk because most of migrant workers are Latino descended. We know that Latinos are at higher risk for diabetes, and also we have language barrier, literacy, medical knowledge, health beliefs and practices, dietary practices. And diabetes is a metabolic problem. Metabolic means how our body digests and absorbs nutrients such as sugar. So we have two types, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 diabetes is caused by destruction of the pancreatic beta cells. Our pancreas makes insulin that tells our cell to digest sugar. Not even for type 1, there is not enough insulin is being made by the body, resulting in high blood sugar. We also have type 2. This is the type that most people have, the type 2. Obesity is the number one risk factor for that. And in type 2, our body becomes resistant to insulin. Insulin secretion can also be apparent. If uncontrolled, diabetes, be it type 1 or type 2, can have many serious consequences such as eye problem, heart disease, stroke, blood vessel problems, which can result in amputation of the foot. I've seen some in the hospital during my clinical rotations. This thing is real. And some signs of and symptoms of diabetes. The biggest, so we have 3 P's. These are the trademark of diabetes. We can have polyuria. Polyuria means you cannot pee a lot, cannot produce a lot of urine. And you can have polydipsia, which means you feel excessively thirsty. You can have polyphagia. It means you become hungry pretty easily. Other symptoms can include fatigue or weakness, sudden vision change, tingling or numbness in hands or feet. You can have dry skin lesions, or wounds that are slow to heal. So how to prevent and treat diabetes? Number 1 is that you need to eat healthy, fresh, balanced food. Balanced means you don't just eat a lot of tortilla, a lot of bread, drink a lot of Coke. You don't eat any fruit or vegetables. You need to eat some food from each group. You should plan what you eat to control weight. Try to control weight, yes. You should control the total intake of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates means sugar. And all these things are carbohydrates. Your soft drinks, which means your Coca-Cola, your Pepsi or Sprite, and your bread, any type of bread, the tortilla, and also potato. Anything that is high in starch have a lot of sugar. And another one to prevent diabetes is you need to exercise regularly. Treatment can include oral medications such as metformin, and you can also have insulin therapy. So the table on the right tells it shows 3 sample meals that are balanced. And so for example, you need to take Here it suggests you take 2 portions of starch, 3 portions of meat, 1 portion of vegetable, 1 portion of fat, 1 portion of fruit. So it gives you a sample lunch. Say number 1, you can have 2 slices of bread. That is your 2 portions of starch. You can have 2 ounces of sliced turkey and 1 ounce low-fat cheese. That's just 3 parts meat. You can have 1 part of vegetable. You can have lettuce, tomato, or an onion. For your fat, you can have 1 tablespoon of mayo. For fruit, you can have 1 medium apple. And you have 3 items that you can choose. You can choose unsweetened iced tea. And
the resettlement of Tibet refugees in the United States was an event that took place from 1991 through 1993. This event would mark the first group of Tibetan refugees that entered the United States. 1,000 visas were issued for the displaced Tibetans. That included spouses and children coming from regions of Tibet, Nepal, and India. Special legislation for the Tibetans was included in the 1990 Immigration Act. A mandated stipulation was enacted that prevented the use of federal funding and aid for the incoming Tibetans. Due to this stipulation, this mobilized a nationwide volunteer effort in 20 cities, including Minneapolis, San Francisco, and New York. These cities or locations would be the sites to which the Tibetans would be taking place in refuge during the settlement. Due to the stipulations, the immigrants were not allowed or eligible for public assistance for 1 year. The nationwide volunteer effort arrived and helped with a help effort pretty much arranged for the Tibetans a prearranged job and sponsored housing. It also gave them a medical screening and care at a local family health clinic, and also came equipped with language, safety health education, legal support, and acculturation classes, and also provided support groups. Ultimately, the Tibetan Resettlement Project in the United States that took place in the 90s served as a significant event that gave insight to health reform that would carry over in the preceding years. The resettlement of the Tibet refugees in the United States served as a significant model and served as evidence as what implications would need to be taking place in order so that migrants could have a successful transition into the United States due to the fact that they are at a disadvantage when receiving any type of health care or reform or government funding or aid. Solutions for reform in immigrant health. Typically, you want to focus on specialty clinics that are made more readily available for specific immigrant groups. Mobility and travel is also an issue that needs to be implemented in order to allow for a greater opportunity for these migrants to access their health care. Though they are very migratory on foot, being in the United States, it helps if they're able to receive some type of transportation, aid or help in order to get to these places to receive their care. Language interpreters are not optional in methods of communication. It is more essential and beneficial for the migrants to learn English as a second language. Also, health assessments and screenings will allow for standardized introduction into healthcare access. This will also help identify predisposed or main conditions that these migrants are already dealing with and need to continuously monitor as they begin their lives here in the United States. The needs to establish referrals for critical requirements includes, as I mentioned before, establishing English as a second language, health screening and disease prevention and maintenance, which falls under the umbrella of primary care, counseling and psychiatric care, availability and employment and housing, obtaining citizenship and support groups to help with the inclusion here in the United States for migrants. Caring for immigrants serves to fulfill human rights and to motivate our ethical compass as providers and clinicians to prioritize and care for the most in need. Caring for immigrants is vital in upholding social cohesion overall, particularly in societies with a great number of immigrants that contribute for the total population, such as here in the United States, being that we are a melting pot. Providing quality health care for migrants is an investment from an economic standpoint that can be beneficial in the long run. In order to make this all possible and for it to be successful, we have to mainstream and not marginalize the migrants. We must treat each individual and the patient accordingly and identify and act to employ the outside resources for the critical needs. Overall, inclusion is key.
Okay, so this brings me to the page. If you know someone that needs help, there's an agency called Las Americas Immigrant Advocacy, and the telephone number is 915-544-5126, and the email is administrator@lasamericas.org. There's also healthcare.gov, healthcare coverage for immigrants, and the website is https, sorry, erase that. So it's healthcare.gov, healthcare coverage for immigrants, and the website is healthcare.gov/immigrants/coverage. There's also a hotline called the National Human Trafficking Hotline, and that number is 888-373-7888. You can also text help or info. There's also local resources here in El Paso, like the Diocesan Migrant and Refugee Services, Inc., and they're located in 2400 East Yondell Drive.
Here's the reference page. That concludes our presentation.